certainly hadn't heard of fat positivity when I was growing up. I don't even think I had heard of body positivity, but now these terms are getting to be a little bit more in like the mainstream vernacular. And that is, I think that's a good thing. I think that's the youth of today have like more of a shot at maybe a generation with hopefully a little less disorder eating.
All right, you're listening to episode number 94 of the Mom Talks with Christa podcast. I hope you guys are having a great week so far. Today's guest on the show is Dr. Colleen Reichmann. We talk all about the positive impact body positivity can have on children. We talk more about what body positivity is, infertility, and so much more. It is a great, great conversation. We'll get to that in just a minute. So while World Breastfeeding Week may be over and our contest has ended, our giveaway, August is still National Breastfeeding Month. So please check out our posts, other pages on Instagram for educational posts about why we have National Breastfeeding Month. Of course, here at Mommy Knows Best, we celebrate all year long and try to educate and inform as much as we can. But this month is really the time to recognize and understand the amazing benefits in ensuring that we support women that choose to breastfeed. And notice I said choose to breastfeed because there's some confusion with this month too. This does not mean pressuring someone that is formula feeding to breastfeed. This does not mean shaming a mom that chooses to formula feed or was unable to breastfeed. We don't know the full story, and it's not for us to judge or decide what they should be doing. Okay, so just to make something clear about what breastfeeding month is and what it is not. So this is about encouraging and supporting others. So let's make sure that's what we are doing. Let's ask ourselves like, hey, and what I'm about to do, supporting or encouraging this mom. So whether you breastfed for a day, a month, or a year, please recognize your accomplishments and the hard work that went into that. Maybe you're nursing, maybe you're a pumping mom, maybe you use an SNS tube. Whatever you do to feed your child is amazing. That's an accomplishment. That's hard work. So we applaud you for that. And let's also recognize that there are many moms that wish to breastfeed, but they can't. They maybe wanted to breastfeed for longer than they were able to, whether it's because of health issues, their job, or another reason. It's important to recognize that not everyone is given the same opportunity or has the same support system. And that's something we really need to change, but we really need to recognize that, okay? So I just kind of want to dive in a little bit to laws and breastfeeding a little bit, just to inform, because there's a lot of women that don't actually know. So while there is a law for break time for nursing mothers, it's covered by the Fair Labor Standards Act, there are still women every day that struggle to be allowed to pump by their bosses, their team, their work environment. I actually see women posting about this all the time in our Facebook group and on social media. They ask questions like, this is what my boss told me. Like, is this true? And they're bullied into thinking that's normal, or because of their job, they can't ask for something, and that's completely wrong. They'll, it might be because of a job or their title or the location, or they're given a bathroom to pump in, which the law specifically states it must be a space free from intrusion. So it has like a lock on it, or no one else is going to be entering it, and not a bathroom. I can't tell you the number of people in my group that said, my boss told me I can go pump in the bathroom. And this is actually not allowed. It's not under the law. The law says it's not a bathroom. But if it my hope is that if this reaches someone that's going through this right now, it encourages you to stand up for yourself and understand the laws in your own state. So make sure you look up the laws for your own state. Also, there's different things based on how big your corporation is. I don't know all the specifics, so definitely look that up. One of my favorite pages to follow about this that encourages support for mothers in the workplace is Totem Women. I actually interviewed Erin maybe 6 months ago, and she's amazing of how she educates, she supports women, she shares laws and actual facts for different states. So check her out. Also, the Mom Attorney is another really great one. She knows her stuff, so make sure you check it out. all about women and mothers in the workplace. So if you feel like you're being treated unfairly, check them out. Look at the laws in your own state that works for your kind of team size, your corporation, all that. There's different factors that can play into it, but make sure you're aware and get some more insight and understanding, because I think sometimes we're afraid to speak up when we don't know if we know the full story or know the full law. I know there's times where I feel like insecure about something. So I'm afraid to speak up because I don't want to be wrong. I see it all the time. It happens in the group as well. So make sure you're aware, get empowered in your story, get empowered in what the law is, bring it up to your supervisor. And if they tell you no, then you know how to take it into matters next step. So I just really want to encourage you guys. I know that's kind of a long spiel there, but especially in this month, World Breastfeeding Month or National Breastfeeding Month, I just want to encourage you guys, because it's true. We see a lot of, in the bigger scale, we see support for breastfeeding moms. Let's support the moms. AAP supports moms up to 2 years breastfeeding. Like, this is amazing. And it's amazing, but what's not amazing is the lack of support that breastfeeding moms are getting, especially from the workplace. And so I think it's important to recognize what support you do need and ask for it. And I get it's not always easy. And I get we all come from different environments. We all have different support around us. Sometimes it's something that we won't be able to come across, I guess, in our daily lives. So, but just to help you guys kind of be more aware of it and more aware of what you can ask for and what is covered by law. So I know that's not really my area of expertise. That's why I wanted to give you guys those pages to follow and check out if you have any questions. But I'm sure you're going to see a lot of other amazing pages share about it this week, this month, so on. All right. So I know I went on a long spiel, but it is very important to me and to all of you guys as well, I know. So I just hope it helps someone. And if you know someone that's struggling currently in their workplace, not knowing when they can pump or being bullied into something, share this episode or share one of these pages with them, and hopefully you can help them. Okay. Tomorrow, Thursday, August 18th at 1 p.m. Central, we have our next Peanut Pod, and we are talking about loneliness and motherhood. So if you're looking for a connection, please join us. And I know I've talked more than I normally do. Maybe this is shorter, I can't really tell in this intro, but I'm really excited to get into today's episode with Dr. Colleen Reichmann. We had a really great discussion, and I'm going to talk about that in our intro coming up. So without further ado, here's my interview with Dr. Colleen Reichmann. Enjoy, guys. Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I hope you're having a great week so far. I got another exciting episode for you today. Dr. Colleen Reichmann was here, and she is a clinical psychologist, an author, and an IVF mom. And we talk all about body positivity, disordered eating, and how to break the cycle for future generations. We have a really great conversation of, what body positivity is, what it means in our society today, and how it's evolved over the years. And I think it's really important to take notes from this to understand how we feel about our own bodies and see how we can kind of make progress to then help our future generations. So I just love this conversation with Dr. Colleen, and I hope you will too. And of course, stick around at the very end for our Mom Tales of the Week, where I read some of your responses on our social media to our questions, sharing your side of motherhood. Thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited to talk to you. I know we're going to talk a lot about body positivity, fertility, and cover so many topics. But before we get started, can you just tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
So I am a licensed clinical psychologist. I have a group practice in Philadelphia called Wildflower Therapy. And I specialize in helping people who are struggling with eating disorders, body issues, but also depression, anxiety, trauma, and then maternal mental health. And I'm an author. I wrote a book called The Inside Scoop to Eating Disorder Recovery, advice from 2 therapists who have been there. I live right outside Philadelphia in one of the suburbs with my 2-year-old, 6-month-old husband, and our 2 dogs.
Awesome. Wow. It's amazing work that you do, because I think, especially like as women, we we struggle a lot in that area. A lot of people, and especially with this audience, like postpartum, learning to love our bodies in different stages of life as well. I know we wanted to talk a lot about body positivity. And first, I know there's a lot of misinformation out there about what body positivity is or means. So first, can we kind of cover like what it is for those listening that do not know?
Sure. Yeah, it's a movement that has been a little bit, in my opinion, co-opted by, well, the makeup industry, like basically industries that maybe should stay out of it.
Mhm.
But it started out as more of a body liberation idea of like all bodies are important and fat bodies are worthy and important too. And it sort of got like over time with social media co-opted into sort of looking like body positivity is loving the appearance of your body. And you'd see people who were very thin, like sort of pushing their stomachs together to make like a small roll and saying like, if I can love myself, so can you, which
Mhm.
is important. I think that has a place for the person if that's helpful, but it sort of takes away from the spirit of the whole thing, which is more about body liberation, centering like the most marginalized bodies and moving towards neutrality in terms of appearance and past appearance, if that makes sense, and just kind of like freedom for all bodies rather than anything appearance based.
Mm. So is it more like how we speak or not speak about our bodies and just like more of like a like accepting or like appreciating kind of way versus like size?
Yeah, I view it that way. And there's a ton of different opinions. And I know there are people who break down like body liberation, body acceptance, body neutrality, body positivity. Like there's kind of different nuances and all of the definitions. But I view it as moving past appearance and more towards, and appearance is great. If you can like love your appearance, the outside, then that's awesome too. But moving more towards appreciation, if that's possible, and functionality, like appreciating that. And then also just overall understanding that your body is kind of your, I think it was Glennon Doyle who says it's like your paintbrush rather than your
Mhm.
canvas. Like it's not,
Mm.
it doesn't need to be your masterpiece. Your life is your masterpiece. So respecting your paintbrush, but also honoring the idea that your life is what's important. Because at the end of the day, if we have the privilege of aging, society at some point or another, society is going to deem our bodies not worthy because we're in a
Mm.
very ageist society. So
Mm.
trying to hold on to like weight or like appearance or youth, it all is very like fleeting and panic inducing. So I think of body positivity and body liberation as like seeing past all that.
Yeah. And how do you think that's like changed over the years? I know like there's like you're saying like this is now like a more widely spread like talked about thing now. And over the generations, like I know when I grew up, it was definitely not that way, or how our parents' generation grew up, it wasn't that way. So how has it changed over the years and how do you see it kind of like evolving, I guess?
I definitely have seen a shift. Because I grew up in like the age of Abercrombie, like when you walked into Abercrombie and the really like washboard abs were this huge thing on the wall. And I was just like swimming in the sea of thin idealization and like
Mm.
obsessional appearance focus. And it's very much obviously like it hasn't shifted, monumentally or anything, but I do see subtle changes, both just even in like the types of celebrities that we like have the privilege of seeing now, and different push towards, and maybe it's all about marketing and this is like, but there still is like I think a push towards a little bit more inclusivity in body size. And I also just think there's more of a, what I had never heard of, for example, health at every size. I certainly hadn't heard of fat positivity when I was growing up. I don't even think I had heard of body positivity, but now these terms are getting to be a little bit more in like the mainstream vernacular, and that is, I think that's a good thing. I think that's, the youth of today have like more of a shot at maybe a generation with hopefully a little less disorder eating. I know people say like the body image issues kind of shift, like We
Mm.
had like Weight Watchers and, you know, Jazzercise, or our moms had Jazzercise and
Mhm.
like fat free everything. We had like Weight Watchers and marathons. And today they'll have like, I don't know, clean eating and the Peloton. So it's all kind of just shape shifts, but I've seen among the shape shifting a little movement.
Yeah, and you mentioned like how, celebrities or people we see on, TV shows, movies are definitely evolving, I think, because, like when I grew up, I feel like everyone was like stick thin. They all looked the same. And now I
Yeah.
feel like it's more widely seen that people are all shapes and sizes and colors, and it's cool to be able to see that kind of shift, because I know like movies from when I was a kid, like everyone looked the same.
Yeah.
um
Oh
so
yeah.
yeah, that's cool that we're kind of yeah, slowly but surely kind of making some progress. And into that, kind of talking about, like movies and all that, like seeing this shift, how can this body positivity, like movement and how we're evolving, impact our children? Because, obviously we hear a lot of stories where movies and TV can negatively impact children, how they view, oh, I should look like that girl, or I should, idolize that person. So how can this movement and, being more aware of it and positively impact children?
Yeah. I think there's some really interesting research that says that kids between the ages of 3 and 5 start reporting a fear of being fat. And then by the age of 10, the majority of children report a preference to getting cancer than being fat. So it's like really, these are the years where this type of these cultural messages seep in. So I just think that the awareness and attempt to, I know we're all in this culture and the messages are still there. And, when they leave the house, there's going to be the negative cultural messages that are unfortunately still very, they're, things are changing, but they're definitely still around. But I personally believe like focusing on the messages that you're giving them in the home, and just the books that I have for my kids are so different than the books that I had growing up. Like
Mm,
we have a book called Bodies Are Cool. And sometimes I'm reading it to my son and I think like, I wonder if things would have been different for me if this
mm,
had been around and these were like, because it's like big bodies, small bodies, aging bodies. It shows like so many different examples of bodies. And then each verse is like, bodies are cool. Like we should, like all bodies are cool. I think exposing them to messages like that I don't think we can like downplay how important that is. I just feel like it's so important because these are like the years that their minds are being shaped, and the research holds that to be true. So if we can have like if we can do our part in shaping them in a way that's more inclusive and just appreciative of bodies, all bodies, I think that's huge. I think it's like really doing a major thing for the next generation, like all of us collectively.
yeah, that's amazing. And that kind of went into like my next question too, about like how we speak about our own bodies in front of children too, is like a huge thing, because it's kind of like, I was just talking to someone about this, but basically when like, you talk to your child about like, oh, love your, like, self-love is so good, like you love yourself because you're amazing, but
Mhm.
then they might overhear you like criticizing your own, self, like, oh, I'm so dumb, why did I do this? And so it's almost that thing of, we don't realize we're doing it to ourselves, but we're trying to, teach it.
Mhm.
So how can moms listening, like maybe they have a hard time accepting their body right now, maybe they're postpartum and, still trying to accept their body changes, so how can they speak about their bodies so that their children can learn to love their bodies as well, or kind of just grow into loving their bodies because they see, mom talk positively?
Yeah. I I think it's twofold. Like I think it's an and both situation because I never ever want to give the message that I guess mothers, we have to be healed fully and like perfect when it comes to body image, because especially postpartum, like it's an incredible time of like uncertainty and change in our own bodies. And I just think it's a lot to ask to demand that moms be even okay with it. Like I think we're allowed to have all the emotions and it's all allowed. And I do think it's really important to not only be encouraging your child to love their body and appreciate it, but also at least be demonstrating that you have respect for your body in
Mhm.
front of your child, because they don't, I really do firmly believe that it cancels out the good messages that we're saying to them if we're openly saying really negative things about ourselves. Because, I mean, if you think about it, that like, if that pattern continues and becomes kind of a narrative for a kid, like say a daughter who always, the mother is always saying like, you love your body and, all those great messages, but she hears her saying that she hates her own body. There's like, over time, there is some awareness that kids develop that like, oh, well, I could look like her. Like I come from that body, a lot of times. And like
Mhm.
maybe I will end up looking like her and that's bad. Like, and now I'm, fearful of growing up, or I'm fearful of body changes. Like it doesn't, it all gets internalized, I would say. So if we can really um just try to, even if we don't fully feel it, show body respect and talk to our bodies in respectful ways as well as their bodies. And then I think like the negative emotions, if you like, they're valid to process, maybe like with a therapist or behind closed doors with a friend or just somebody else. But I would say not, I would be very, very wary of doing that in front of my child.
No, that's a great point because I feel like even they pick up on like I know things like I picked up on like when I was a kid that probably they like either didn't know I was in the room or they probably didn't even think of it as something like, oh, commenting like, oh, this is sugar free or this is fat free. Oh, this is better, you know? And so you kind
Hmm.
of hear these things that like weren't necessarily meant to be heard by the child, but I feel like, you hold on to those things as kids, like, oh, should I only get fat free stuff? Like,
Yeah.
so that's really important.
Yeah. It's so, so true. Just gets
Yeah.
internalized.
Definitely. And I know another thing you're really passionate talking about is infertility. And I thought this was an interesting, I was looking through like some of the posts you share. How is infertility and body image kind of, I would say, how do they relate to each other?
I like really feel passionate that it's not talked about enough, because to me, and I know I guess infertility is the 1 in 8. So maybe we just don't hear from that like 1/8 enough. But
Mhm.
I really feel strongly that it's very, very tied to body image, that like infertility, pregnancy loss, like all of it is happening in our bodies. So it will be hard to, and body functioning, like how our bodies function and perform is a piece of body image. Like that falls under
Mhm.
the umbrella. So I think it's really easy when you are going through infertility or pregnancy loss to get into this headspace that like my body's broken, it's like wrong, it can't do its job. Why can't it just be like other people's bodies who are doing their job easily and without effort? And it's like that can then easily be transferred into kind of like body loathing. Like I had the experience of almost separating myself off from my body. Like it was my mind and emotions, and then my body. Like I remember even like the progesterone and oil shots, like giving this to myself and like just being like, oh, I like so angry at you to my body, even though I'm like residing in my body. I think the separation like that is kind of a troubling place to exist in. And I understand like why it happens. It's just the body loathing. It's an easy target, your body, when you're going through all that, 'cause it's all happening in you. And it's just, you feel like your body's failed you.
Mhm. Yeah, and like for women that are kind of in that space right now where they're like, they're maybe in like going through a rough time of that, like, what is like that first like stepping stone to start loving their body or to, accept, this journey of like, it's not going to be one day they're just going to love everything about their body, but it's a journey. Like, what advice would you have, or what is that kind of like stepping stone they can take?
I think that it's really important to not, I know this sounds a little weird, but not push away that body hatred, like these feelings, the emotions and the thoughts of hating one's body. Like I do think allowing it to kind of like come and then seeing if you can practice almost releasing it. Like I felt like I was allowed to be mad at my body. And then at some point, so I would try to I guess it's like everything else with emotions, you would kind of I say like invite the emotion in, kind of like a traveling professor, like this body loathing and stuff. Like, what is it here to teach me? Sit with it for a little bit. And then once you've sat with it, sort of try to release it or watch it like leave. Like, don't let it stay the night. So you don't want to sit in it and like simmer for days and
Mhm.
days, but invite it in, think about what it's trying to teach you. For me, I think body loathing and all of that was trying to teach me like I just have a lot of anger at this process and I feel like it's very unfair and I'm like in such pain and I'm needing a place to like funnel it. And so my
Mm,
body is that scapegoat, I guess. And so then that taught me like what's another place I can funnel it? Like can I write about this? Can I talk about it in therapy? Can I like break things? Like how else can I
mhm.
funnel this emotion so I'm not inadvertently taking it all out on my body because she's still home, and we are on the same team. So that is, I would say, the best advice is the invite it all in, sit with it, try to think about like the lessons and everything, and then see if you can watch it and expect it to come and go like standing in an ocean. Like a lot of
Mm.
times you're in shallow water and it seems really calm and then out of nowhere you just get like hit in the face by a wave and then if you let the wave come and go, you'll be standing in the shallow water again eventually.
Yeah, I think that's great advice to sit in and like understand your feelings too. Cause I think so many times we're told like, get rid of the negative feelings, like, and then so we so quickly like try to get over it
Hmm.
without actually like absorbing, okay, what am I feeling? Why am I feeling that? And going into it.
Yeah, because we have them for like emotions developed for an evolutionary reason. Like we have them, they're supposed to be like kind of not always, but a lot of the time they're like data. Like they tell us like, oh, this is what I need in this moment, or this is what I lost, or they're messengers.
Hmm. Yeah. And so kind of talking about, this goes into body image too, about like postpartum. What is so damaging or why is that bounce back culture of, postpartum moms so damaging? Yeah, especially, to new moms.
I biggest pet peeve is I think bounce back culture is so toxic. And so it's already some of the hardest day, not to like scare anyone who's maybe about to have a baby, but I think realistically it's some of the hardest days of your lot, and months like following having a baby and your body has been through this like major, I don't know if there's anything else as major in our lives that we go to, but pregnancy and then giving birth and it's all like trauma in some sense and then your life has changed, you have a new human with you at home that you're working on keeping alive and you're working on like with sleep deprivation, huge hormonal like upheaval, just life uncertainty, life changes, basic needs are sometimes hard to even get met, and so then to take all of that and like icing on the cake or to put on top of it like and by the way, like you should really try to make it look like this never happened. Like you need to
Mm,
make it look like you never had a baby. That's wild to me. Like that pressure is it's so unbelievably unfair. And I like want everybody to I want us to collectively unsubscribe to that because I just think it's silly. It would be like asking to me saying we should look like our postpartum like previous like we hadn't had babies is like saying like could you just make it look like you're in sixth grade again, like, could you go
mm,
back and like make sure none of these years ever happened, and it just makes no sense. Like we're fundamentally changed, we're allowed to like never go back to the same gene size, all of that is like valid and there's nothing wrong with it. Like and there I just think bodies should be like respected and honored after they go through this process instead of like now get small again and like go away, like pretend it never happened.
mhm.
um and I want there to be like a collective rejection of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's so true what you say. Like there's so already so much pressure on women, I feel like, and to be like All right. And then in a couple weeks, you got to go right back to where it's like your body went through this major change. And it's unrealistic expectations and it's pressure on yourself when you're already under so much pressure from, society, from probably yourself. And yeah, it's scary, all the pressure and the advertisements out there to so quickly, change yourself when you went through this major thing.
Yeah, I got an advertisement for Mother's Day this year. It had to have been a targeted thing, but for a mommy makeover, which is surgery. Like there was surgery involved, and it was like, this is what you want for Mother's Day, especially if you just had a baby. And I contacted them and I was like, I think this is really unethical. Like, I think you should stop. People are in a vulnerable place after they've given
Mhm.
birth. And just in general, I think mothers are vulnerable when it comes to body image. And we're already trying to do all this stuff and send good messaging to our kids and try to, like, a lot of times bear the emotional, like, brunt of all the everything when it comes to parenthood. And
Mhm.
you just, that we shouldn't have to also be targeted with these, like, and reminder, don't forget about obsessing about your body on top of all of it. Like, if there's
Mhm.
something that's going to break the camel's back, I feel like that's going to be it. And when they just, so I feel powerfully about calling them out, all these companies.
Yes. Did they get back to you at all or reply or
No.
no? Oh, that's so frustrating. Yeah, and it's that, like, predatory kind of, like, advertising because it's like you said, they know they're in a vulnerable state. It's like, "We're gonna make you feel better because we're gonna do all these things," and it's just this unrealistic. I mean, it's kind of back to that's like that quote that society wants women to I'm gonna, like, butcher it, but you know, parent or like work like we don't have kids and parent like we don't
Mhm.
work and it's this like impossible thing that we can't reach, and it's kind of like going back to like the 60s or something where it's like, oh, everything's perfect, everything's
Yeah.
fine, and you know what your job is, and that's it. So yeah, I think what can we kind of do as we unsubscribe to this bounce back culture, so what other things can we do as a society to kind of push back on that?
I know it's hard when it's like the societal messaging, and I'm here saying, like, don't listen. But I do think there's something to, like, what pops into my mind. I scroll like TikTok and I see a lot of, especially mom influencer TikTok, and I'll see new moms try to make joke, like, light of the situation by, like, a TikTok I saw like the other day was a mom saying, like, 2 months postpartum, looking at my stomach or something, and then she, like, yelled, like the voiceover was like, "How long is this going to take?" Like, all
Mm,
annoyed, and it was supposed to be funny, and I get the, like, using humor to as a release, but I also think, like, maybe we should stop making jokes about it. Like, maybe we should
mm,
stop having, like, letting that dominate the conversation anyway. The idea of, like, bouncing back, and maybe we should really work to, like, together normalize never getting back to pre-pregnancy jean size or whatever. Like, that's
mm,
also very normal. And I don't know, just kind of like work to shut down that type of conversation, joking, and see if we can introduce, like, any time this is joked about or brought up, lovingly, like, introduce the idea of this this other narrative that we can, like, just work towards acceptance, modeling, like, a better relationship with our bodies for our kids, and loving, accepting, and appreciating and celebrating bodies across the size spectrum. And just, even if we don't fully feel it ourselves, work to at least, like, invite that in with each other and, like, have those conversations more than the joking or, like, talking about how much we hate our bodies and we want to bounce back.
right. Yeah, because it's kind of like that, joking about it, like there could be like deep down, desires or thoughts, about wanting to do that. So I totally get that. How, first of all, like people that are listening, like how do you know if you've been affected by like generational, like, disordered eating, and how can you kind of stop that cycle for your next generation and kind of like making that change and being more aware of it?
That's such a good question and so hard. I would say, I I would say you could err on the side of assuming you have been impacted by generational, maybe not eating disorders, but disordered relationships with food, because it's just so common for, I think, like the millennial generation, the boomer generation. I forget what generation is before that, but them too. Like there's so much about like messaging about thin idealization and rules around food. And I think a lot of parents just were trying to do like the best they could for the like with all this messaging and the messaging about the obesity epidemic, the fear mongering around that. Like I think
Mhm.
parents trying to do the best they could really like most likely pass that on to almost all of us. It would be hard to escape that.
Mhm.
Um, so I think it's probably a question of like how much you were impacted is something to think about. And I would start with writing down, like just to start, write down like if you were to conceptualize your mother's relationship with food and her body growing up, like just write, kind of free associate. What do you remember? What messages did she verbally or non-verbally send to you? Like what do you
Mhm.
even if you're not sure, like what do you hypothesize she sent to you or your father or another caretaker, like grandparents? And then think about like, and how, if these messages did get passed, like how do I still grapple with them today? Am I like, have I been able to reject a lot of them? Do a lot of them still kind of haunt me? Are a lot of them like somewhere in my subconscious? Am I rejecting them behaviorally, but still emotionally dealing with them? I think writing is really helpful here. When it
Mhm.
comes to changing it, that takes really intentional, I would say dogged, like daily effort and
Mhm.
work, and like changing behaviorally, like acting differently, honestly, with food and towards your body, and sort of self correcting like thoughts, like having thoughts and then noticing like this is a thought I'm having and seeing if you can then move towards like a different thought. Or working with a therapist is probably also, like a therapist who's well versed in all of this is probably, and you know, that's like financially a privilege for sure, but it can be a real game changer, I think. That's probably like one of the most important pieces.
That's amazing. And we kind of talked on this before, but like, like empowering our children, the next generation. And so what are some well, I guess we also didn't really like define like disordered eating. I know that's kind of like a newer thing people are talking about, or at least I'm more aware of it now. Like I don't think we always talked about it. So first can kind of like can define that, and then how can we talk or not talk about our children's food eating so that they don't associate weight, size with what they're eating?
Yeah, disordered eating, I firmly believe it kind of occurs on a spectrum. And so, really, it's about, at the end of the day, it really does come down to like, are you is this relationship with food, does it feel like overly rigid? Is there like inflexibility? Do you feel stressed by it, or stressed by your relationship with exercise, or stressed out more often than not by like just your relationship with your own body? And if the answer to any of that is yes, there might be some disorder eating going on. And it can range in anything from just being like super obsessive about like the types of food you're eating, or how like, I think there's been a real shift from like when I struggled with an eating disorder when I was younger, it was kind of, it was anorexia, and it was very much like low fat this, low fat that,
Mhm.
extreme behaviors that I were very blatantly disordered to me, like you'd read about them in a textbook. And things have shifted now. The conversation around food has shifted more towards like the clean eating, organic
Mhm.
lifestyle type stuff, which is, I think, trickier to spot, honestly, because you can get obsessed with that and society really celebrates it to a point, and then it's like, okay, well, now you're too obsessive. And it's like, where is that point? What
Mhm.
are we? So it's all about like noticing for yourself, is this, am I stressed about this? Is this creating more stress in my life? Do I feel like there's rules that keep me from engaging socially? Do I feel like if I think about what I want for my kids, is it how I interact with food right now? And I
Mhm.
think all, and exercise, and all of those are kind of little pieces to consider for yourself. And then what was the second part of the question?
Yeah, no, I kind of asked like a bunch all at once. And so then when we're thinking about like talking with our kids like about like food, how do we talk about it or not talk about it so that they don't associate health, weight, size with what they're eating?
Mhm. I think there's definitely lots of different opinions about that. My personal approach and what I like the best is just trying to neutralize the conversation around food with kids. So not really say like this is healthy, this is unhealthy, trying hard not to like demonize sugar or keep it as a like, let's use this sugar as a like you got to get to this, like eat the other food to get to the amazing
Mm,
dessert, because I think it all just like, I don't know. I know this isn't like a clinical way of saying it, but it just like messes with our minds and our kids' minds. So I like to say things are like nutrient dense, even though my 2-year-old, there's no way he gets that. But I
mm,
still am saying it now, like, oh, that's more nutrient dense. This maybe has like less nutrients. So what could we choose right now? Giving them lots of choices, I think is important. And having like we have like the dessert on his plate with the dinner to kind of just say like it's all valid. I know there's like a whole conversation about it. It's just complicated how it actually plays out with your kids, but these are all like kind of aspirational things to do, I would say. Let's see. And just, yeah, not like upholding food in any real way. I think normalizing eating for joy too, because there's this weird conversation around how we shouldn't be eating emotionally. And yet, as a culture, almost every culture uses food in an emotional way. Like we
mm,
celebrate it, we mourn with it, we bring it to each other like during breakups or like hard times. Like it's very much an emotional thing. So
mhm,
saying like, oh, it's allowed to be really fun. Like you are allowed to just eat for joy if you want to. Some days, like it's
mhm,
okay. All of that I would say is like important. And it's different than like what I learned growing up. So I think, yeah, to me, it feels like at least right now, these are positive shifts that I'm making in terms
mhm.
of my kids' relationship with food. But I know the conversation's always evolving. So in 10 years, we might even have better ideas. I'm really open to being corrected here as I go along.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think those are all like great, great tips because I think even to just being aware of it, like the way we like talk to our kids and like children about it, I think is a huge thing because I think like you said, it was so like black and white, like, oh, this is a good food, this is bad food, and then that bad leads to guilt when we eat it. So, and I love that put dessert on the plate with the other food. And I talked with, I think Jennifer from Kids Eat in Color a few years ago, and
Oh,
she
yeah.
said the same thing. And that was the first time I had heard it. And I thought that was so cool because then they're all level. It's like you're gonna get chocolate after you eat, or what you can have it with your meal. And it's level, it's not good or bad, but it's just like a part of the meal. And then it
Mhm.
doesn't turn into this huge thing either, where it's like, oh, you're only gonna get dessert if you finish everything on your plate,
Yeah.
which kind of creates another, I don't know, maybe issue. I don't know if issue is the right word, but another thing in kids' minds of like, oh, okay, I can only have this when I'm good or that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I've worked with a lot of kids and a lot of adults at this point who remember when they were younger, well, that led to food sneaking or like sneaking food. And that can really, I think, become like a kind of a problematic pattern for the whole family when you feel like, okay, you're allowed to have this. If you eat this, it's locked up the rest of the time. Kids are kids. They're like curious. And also, like, when something, even for adults, is like, ooh, this is not allowed. Like, there's a human tendency to like push back and try to get that, whatever it is, or, I just think I've seen it play out so often. And parents, I think, are so well intentioned a lot of the time in doing all that. They just want their kids to be like healthy and have a good life, but I think most of the time like backfires.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it is like just kind of like the words matter, like how you speak about things. Yeah, and you make a great point too about like I just heard the other day on a podcast about like, there's like I don't know if it's like a scientific study or something, but like when you're told you can't have a certain thing, or even if it's like you're doing like a diet or some kind of thing where you're like, oh, I can't have this, your brain wants it more, your body wants it more when you're told you can't. And I know like that like shifted for me when I was like, I'm no longer going to have things on like, you cannot eat that list. And it made it so much better because it's like, then you kind of know, okay, like I feel good when I eat this. I feel, it's more about like your intuition versus like what someone's telling you or what a label's telling you.
Yeah. And I noticed that during pregnancy, I remember saying, like, by month 7 or 8, I was like, I can't stop thinking about a turkey sandwich. I want it so bad, like deli meat. And I was like, why am I obsessed with deli meat? And my one friend who's also an eating disorder therapist was like, because you can't have, like, it's because there's a rule there now. And like, I get it. But once that's there, the mind, like, that's the research proven that your mind then goes to it and you just want it more. And after I had like I had like a turkey sandwich after I delivered, like within like the like hour. And
Right.
then I think I had like a few, maybe it was probably like 5 days of turkey sandwiches. And then I was like, okay, it's more of a normative relationship to turkey sandwiches now. Like I just want them
Yeah.
occasionally, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Someone telling you you can't have it, like immediately want it. That's awesome. Well, awesome. This is like, I love this topic because I think the first step is to just making people more aware of it and how they can kind of break that cycle and, help future generations. So where can people follow you, get more information from you, and then anything else that you offer?
They can follow me at, I have an Instagram account. That's Dr. Colleen Reichmann. I have I have a Substack that I'm trying to kind of just use my Instagram account as it's very much like anti-diet culture, but also motherhood and feminism, but a lot about eating disorders. Then I was having this craving to write more about like how motherhood enters the picture. So I started a Substack that's called Musings from a Mama. And that's like essays about kind of all of this specifically. And then if you want to reach out about the option of therapy, if you're in Pennsylvania, my website is colleenreichman.com. And then my email is colleenreichman@gmail.com.
Awesome. And we'll put all the links in the show notes as well. And I always like to end these interviews with a fun thinking question. I call it, if you could have a billboard made today where you could share one tip with moms everywhere, what would you have it say?
Okay, I thought about this because I wanted to like be intentional. I really do feel like, and this is full circle back to the bounce back culture. I think we need that, like a billboard saying, like, hey mamas, reject, like, this is your reminder to reject bounce back culture. Your body's a miracle, like, and it's great now, it was great before, it was great during your pregnancy. I feel like we need that billboard because all we see is
Mhm.
the mommy makeover and like cool sculpting for moms, and here's how you get back into those jeans. They're like everywhere. So if we could just have I want like to start with one, just one big billboard saying that. I think that would be a good addition to the world.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Because I agree. I think people need to see it more. Like you don't see just ads saying you're amazing, your body's amazing, mom.
Yeah.
You don't see that stuff. So I think like that'd be amazing to have.
Yeah. Better world with it.
Yeah, we need more of those positive messaging. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was, like I said, an amazing topic to have. And I think the work you're doing is amazing, helping so many women. And yeah, it's just cool to see.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is great.
All right, guys, it's time for our Mom Tales of the Week. And this week we asked you to tell us your fun pregnancy reveals, whether it was to your partner, to your parents, to friends, to the internet, whatever it was. So here we go. We got so many responses, as you can imagine. I just think it's so fun seeing how people reveal, when they reveal. People get really creative. Number 1, Brooke. We just had baby number 3 in April. We waited until delivery to find out boy or girl. A nurse had my husband's phone to do pictures and surprised us by taking a video of the baby raised above the curtain and my husband saying it's a boy. We were convinced it was going to be a girl. So we definitely shed some very happy tears. I'm so glad I have that moment on video. Oh, so this was like a reveal to you guys about if it was a boy or a girl. That's really sweet. And I love the surprise factor of not finding out. I think that's super fun. Number 2, Cassidy. We found out we were pregnant on our anniversary. We waited 2 weeks to tell our families on Easter. We made them cute shirts and said somebody's going to be grandparents. And we hid them in big Easter eggs. It was so precious. When my grandpa saw my parents' shirts, he started to cry. Oh, that's so sweet. That's a really cute idea, putting them in big Easter eggs. Number 3, Megan. My husband and I got pregnant using IVF, and we announced our pregnancy with a bandana for our dog that said, "My parents are getting me a human." Only close family and friends knew about our IVF journey, so our pregnancy announcement included our backstory and what we went through. We now have a 9-day-old beautiful baby girl. I love that. I love the backstory showing the journey of how you got there. That's beautiful. Congratulations. Number 4, M. I found out I was pregnant in October of last year, and I made a letter board that said, "Adding one little pumpkin to our patch," and put out a bunch of pumpkins and a baby outfit and pacifiers, teethers for him to find when he got home from a business trip. Oh, so that was for your husband. That's so sweet. Oh, I love that. That's really cute. Number 5, Tara. We told our family at Christmas gathering since we found out I was expecting a week before Christmas. We put a onesie, pacifier, and socks in a small box with string lights. When they opened the box, they saw the baby items and the onesie that said, "I can't wait for you to hold me." We publicly announced on Valentine's Day, oh, I love all the holidays, with a photo shoot picture we did in our home with heart balloons, and us holding a sign and ultrasound picture. The sign said, "Roses are red, love is sweet, our family is growing by 1 heart and 2 feet." Oh, that's so cute. Like I said, I love all the holidays. Like, it really timed up for you guys. And I love a little creative poem like that. Okay, number 6. This is their Instagram handle, at Smiles for Simplicity, by saying, "Who's going to help babysit our baby when she comes out?" I love that. Just right to the point. Who's going to babysit our baby when she comes out? People are like, what? That's good. All right, 7, Becca. We found out at the beginning of November and then told our family on Thanksgiving by making them read a poem, and at the end of the lines revealed our pregnancy. We also gave them a t-shirt in a mug. It was really sweet. I love that. Short and sweet. Number 8, Catherine. I had a shirt that said, "Does this shirt make me look pregnant?" And my husband said, "Does this shirt make me look like a dad?" And we wore it to dinner with his parents. That's so cute. I want to know more. I want to know, did it take them a long time to notice? Did you walk right in? Or did you have a sweater on top of it first? And what were their reactions? I want to know so much more. Maybe I should have put that in the question. I love hearing about these reveals. Next week, we're going to do one similar. It's tell us about the time you found out you were pregnant. And I know there's going to be some fun stories for that. So they might kind of overlap a little bit, but I can't wait. We're actually kind of sticking with this theme for the next few weeks. And the next one's about siblings and finding out they're going to have another sibling and stuff. So not to give you guys all the questions coming up, but we thought it was a fun theme because so many people are talking about it in the group, how they revealed, and it's always fun to see. All right, that's all I got for this week. Thanks for tuning in, guys. I will see you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for watching this episode. Before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of future episodes. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. See you next week.